through that series of insights, I mean, in a sense that there are parallel but contradictory things going on at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, what's your take?
Well, one, I agree with him on that. There has to be this reversion back to the impact on people. We can't just talk about the climate change and not revert back to the impact on people. And that is why we've always been saying climate is an imperative of sustainable development, and sustainable development is an imperative of climate action and vice versa. And to us, then, if we look at it that way, there are about 4 very important issues that we must then address. And if we do not, then we are really not, we are failing in the bigger geopolitical conversation. And one of those, right at the top of it, is the quality and quantity of climate finance. And I know earlier you had a panel discussion on climate finance, and it covered this quite well. But there's one particular issue that I want to stress quite strongly here is structural issues in relation to debt. And I specifically bring out of all of the climate issues that they mentioned earlier, I specifically want to bring the structural issues in relation to debt, because we have so many countries, about 37, that are on the brink of a debt crisis. And we have 9 out of 10 climate vulnerable countries that are in the continent that are also in that list of the debt vulnerable countries. And there is a relationship here. And we find that a lot of African countries and EMD countries are actually paying for their resilience and adaptation from their national budgets that are financed by debt. And again, we can always say we know that they are financing this climate issue, which they did not cause. And I know every time we bring this statement, people say, yeah, but we've heard this before. We should lose this statement because it is exhausting. But it is the reality. And we can't talk about the finance issue and the debt problem if we do not talk about this underlying problem. And it is a problem, it's a structural issue that we must deal with. And then over and above that fact that they are financing resilience because they are hit by recurring, and those recurring will increase, recurring shocks will increase. Drought, you were talking earlier about fires in Portugal and floods that were happening in Spain. You know, we had El Nino earlier. And our wildlife died. Our livestock died. And we've just last year also we had extreme drought. And we don't talk about these things because, again, they were not covered in BBC.
I'm sure we did.
It was not, but yeah. They are recurring, and in order to cover the cost of El Nino, of opening new wells in order for communities to feed, to provide water to their livestock and to provide water to the wildlife, it costs money.
And this is in a world that's warmed 1.2 degrees. Now,
yes.
We're running out of...
I know, but there's a point that I really want to make here, that we are forcing countries into getting more debt. And then that debt, the cost of capital, is also high. So we are getting them into this extreme cycle. And then the other issue in relation to China is we saw African countries in Beijing recently. And then the question is, why are African countries always gravitating to China. China made a $50 billion commitment towards during FORCAC. And what we know is when China makes a commitment of $50 billion, 3 days later, there will be a way of accessing that $50 billion. A couple of years ago, the EU made a commitment of the Global Gateway of $350 billion. We still do not know ways in which to tap into that $350 billion.
So
and that's something that we should really address.
So this is the kind of reality of the financing. Look, we're almost out of time.
Yes.